Hello, my babies. Hello, my darlings. Hello, my ragtime children. Welcome to another video. This one is inspired by a recent reel that I just posted on my Instagram. If you don't follow me there yet, or if you don't follow me there and you're never going to, whatever the case may be in your world, my Instagram is Rustic Peach. And I'm going to put it in the description of this video so you can find it if you'd like. My YouTube is my long form version of the same things that I share and talk about as I do on my Instagram. Best of both worlds, depending on what kind of consumer you are. You can choose what you're in the mood for. A lot of me or a little of me. Okay, so I just posted a reel about becoming the ideal version of yourself. So, if you are in a place in life where you're in a transition mode, maybe this video will serve you. Maybe stay tuned and watch this video if you are devoting more of yourself to a certain project or goal or vision in your life, whether it's related to yourself, your body, your health, your relationships, your environment, your creative projects, whatever it is. The theme of this is going to be long term, like continuity, and what it actually feels like on a more raw level to navigate that space between who you are right now and who you are not yet embodying fully, if that makes sense. You got all the ingredients to be that person. It just takes time for them to culture and mature and cook, in the oven of your soul and your life circumstances. Okay? Hold on a second. I got my handy dandy lip balm. That was what I needed to pause for. Anyway, before I continue, I have to tell you about my upcoming 6-week Art as Attunement retreat. It's going to be an online retreat, and all of the kind of topics that I'm going to be going into in this video are topics that we're going to explore experientially, relationally, creatively, symbolically, expressively, soulfully in this retreat. It gives you access to my private Facebook group, as well as 40% off of a one-on-one or a scan deep dive session with me, which also includes 3 weeks of continuity support afterwards. All those transactional details will be on my Instagram at the link in my bio. And I'll also put links in my description. So if you're interested in working with me and a group of people on some of these topics, and really whatever adjacent to this is alive for you in your life, then click on those links, check it out, see what it's about. I just had to tell you about that. So basically, yeah, this video is going to be talking about what it really feels like for me to be in transition to becoming a specific version of myself that I'm trying to become. I have goals in my life around my physical health, my physical body, my relationships, the way that I experience intimacy, my level of emotional security that I carry around with me wherever I go, whether it's relationally or in my own self. My home, my physical home. I'm building a home. I mean, I'm not actually building a house, I'm making a home. Building a business, building a community as well. So these are a couple of my kind of continual long-term life goals. So this is going to get a little deeper, a little more personal into where that Instagram reel was coming from for me. So I'll tell you a quick story. It's not going to be quick though. You know when you make a drink and it's the perfect temperature and there's just enough flavor that it's just, you know? I've got electrolytes and water and a tiny bit of ice in here. I don't really like drinking iced drinks, but it's like there's not too much flavor, it's just subtle and it's perfectly cool and it's just so drinkable. I really enjoyed that. Okay, so here's my story. In essence, I'm creating all of those things in my life right now. And if you're new to my channel, my page, hi, my name is Aaliyah, and I share, a lot of the kind of traumas that I've overcome in my life and the wisdoms that I have gleaned from those traumas and how I use my clarity and perceptive ability to see these really hard situations for what they are. And I use that clarity to protect my mind from spiraling on itself and kind of becoming possessed, so to speak, by the pure, unending pain that is surviving severe trauma. I talk about these things. That's kind of part of my MO here on the internet and social media, and something I really enjoy doing and sharing with people. And so one of those traumas, one of those pains that is still very much fresh and alive and at the forefront of my life for me is estrangement, familial estrangement. I am both physically and emotionally estranged from pretty much my entire family. And that's really heavy. And the implications of that are pretty severe, pretty intense. What do I mean when I say that? I mean, I don't have a mother. Like, I have a physical mother in the flesh, but I don't have a mother who I can go to for support or love or comfort. I don't have, it's like every day I'm kind of fighting demons in my mind, intrusive thoughts, mental spirals, emotional borderline collapses, where the weight of what I survived and what I went through just kind of becomes too heavy for me to feel like I can keep going, and it just becomes way too overwhelming. And that intensity flares up and down in waves. And I'll tell you, today I woke up and I felt severely depressed, but I will say I'm resilient as fuck. And I've learned to trust that when I sometimes push myself or force myself, not to my detriment, but to my benefit. It's hard to measure the difference sometimes, but when I actually initiate positive momentum in my life, where most of the time it's like me doing something that interrupts the pattern of that trauma spiral. So I'll go to a new place that I've never been to. I'll go somewhere at a time of day that I don't usually go out. I will, like, one of the things I did today that was different was I cooked a recipe that I've never made before, and I went to 2 different grocery stores to buy some ingredients, and that was how I spent like an hour and a half or something of my late morning and like my afternoon. And I don't usually go out at that time of day, and I've never been to one of the specific grocery stores that I went to get some ingredients, and I haven't followed a recipe in a long time. And then what did I do after that? I drove to my local humane society to donate some old cat toys that I've been meaning to do. So I I'd never been in there before. You know, and so what else did I do after that? I cooked, I ate, I did a workout that I've never done before, and I did it in a part of my house that I've never really used before. I have this little section where I have a basket with like my yoga mats and stuff, and I have a mirror right there. So I set that up, and I've never utilized that like open floor space right in front of my, right behind my computer where you can't see. Here, I'll give you a peek, but it's not going to be, there's my girl. But yeah, right there on that floor space there, I was just doing my little thing. You know, so I did a couple of things today that were different than my typical routine, and they weren't anything that required me to like socially perform or like exert some crazy amount of energy. But when you are surviving trauma and exhausted and feeling emotionally crippled, it can feel like daunting to, you know, break your routine, even slightly, because when you do that, you are pushing up against momentum that has kept you in survival mode against those insane traumas for so long. So it's like even the idea of doing something slightly different or changing up your routine in a very small way, it can feel daunting at first. And I think that's why a lot of people who experience depression have trouble like getting out of bed, because it's like the thought of doing anything differently is literally feels physically and emotionally impossible. But what I learned about myself, and I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but maybe this will give you some inspiration to try something new for yourself that might help you to break these cycles and to keep feeling actually positive within yourself, because I know how challenging that can be. What was I just saying? I think I just lost my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, it's challenging to get up and try to change your routine when your whole body is just stuck in this mode of like self-preservation, even if the trauma itself is not actually happening. But it's like, to give you kind of an idea of how severe it has been for me and how severe it can be for people sometimes, is it's like when you're kind of in familiar routines and you're trying to grow, right, towards those goals, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, environmental, whatever it is for you and your goals, when your mode of being is routinely kind of wrapped up in or engaged with certain conditions, environmentally, behaviorally, that give your nervous system or leave your nervous system, maybe, I'm just making up words, susceptible or vulnerable to repeating unconscious trauma feedback loops, those unresolved loops where that pain cycles and has nowhere to go, so it kind of caves in on itself and it spirals, and that's when the depression starts to really squash you. When your nervous system is in a place where those patterns are running automatically and they're not being disrupted, that's when I think a person becomes most susceptible to their own past pain and those nervous system loops. And then, as I was saying, what I found for myself that really works for me is when I am available for this, because there are times when I'm not. There are times when I'm genuinely physically and emotionally overstimulated or too exhausted, and going out is just going to rile me up more and it's going to hurt me more. And it can kind of be really hard to discern the difference sometimes. Maybe I could talk about that more in another video. But anyway, what I found is that when I catch the pattern and my awareness is fixated on understanding, like, okay, I see that my nervous system is beginning to spiral, so I need to come up with a plan of action and do something slightly different. Even if it's like a gentle change, like I'm going to set aside 10 minutes to go sit in another room and like read a book, or like call someone or like go drive somewhere I've never been before, or like whatever, just do some small change and get my nervous system in a state where I'm actually engaged. Like I am prefrontally online. Like I am aware of the colors, the textures, the sensations, the living, breathing experience of this present moment. My little mantis hands. When I am actually online and engaged in that capacity, in a present capacity, maybe I'm making music or whatever, my nervous system gets relief and a break from cycling and spiraling through old trauma, CPTSD patterns. And voila. That's healing. We're done here. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. So anyway, let this be maybe inspiration for you to do something that helps you break that cycle. Because watch what your mind is saying. And actually ask, is this true? Is this the ultimate truth? And do I have proof that this is currently true? Or is it something that my past, however long and repeated and chronic my past may have been, has convinced me is true? And that can be a really, really tough thing to confront, because when you actually examine those internalized beliefs or pains or fears or whatever, and you realize that, wait, actually something else might be possible in my life other than everything I've ever known, that can be one of the most tender human experiences in existence, because it triggers grief for all of the possibilities that were squandered and made impossible by your past. But the beautiful thing is that possibilities always exist. This is why people say it's never too late to start exercising. It's never too late to start dating. It's never too late to start an art project. It's never too late to follow your dreams. Like, you know, and I think a lot of people avoid and put off what their souls, this is very emotional, but a lot of people avoid and put off what their souls actually dream of doing because their nervous systems haven't caught up to the reality yet that pursuing the dream requires them to surrender and to grieve what could not have been, because yeah, you weren't able to do what now you have a chance to pursue because maybe you were being abused, maybe you were trapped. Yeah, you were at one point. I'm not going to bypass that, but I'm also not going to enable, lies. I want to encourage clarity, actual clarity, objective clarity. Something feeling impossible or daunting or intimidating is not the same thing as something actually being impossible. It just might be that the distance between you and what's possible requires baby steps, lots of support, lots of patience with yourself, lots of love, lots of encouragement. And I've had to be that kind of friend and support system for myself in a lot of ways while moving towards some of my long-term life goals, with my health, with my home, with my environment, with my business, with my art projects. It's like there are creative visions that I've had for my entire life that I'm committing to them would require me to sit down and start them and sit with all of the doubts and fears and vulnerabilities and areas where I don't quite have the skill sets that I need in order to achieve a certain level of being or creativity or expression. And one example of that is, playing the keys. When I was 11 or 12, I wanted to take keyboard lessons, piano, keys. But I lived in, my honey is asleep and deep because she's just twitching over there. When I was growing up, my creative expression, specifically musically, music is an enormous part of my soul. Quick pause for any astrology nerds out there. If you, I've talked about this before actually, but if you're familiar with the nakshatra Dhanishta, I have a stellium, 3 planets in Dhanishta, and Dhanishta is the star of rhythm. Lots of musicians, drummers, dancers, like rhythm people have Dhanishta placements, and I have 3 Dhanishta placements in my 4th house, which is my house of home. So I'm meant to, music and rhythm and self-expression and fluidity, it's supposed to be a part of my natal sense of belonging, my home. The most belonging I've ever felt in my life has been when I'm creatively, rhythmically, non-linearly expressing myself with a group of people, which is why I've created art as attunement, because I want to include other people in that creative process with me. So that's another sign, if you're interested in joining, maybe that's the point of interest for you. But anyway, as I was saying, when I was a kid, 11 or 12, I used to want to take keyboard lessons, but I always felt this extreme discomfort when it came to being seen in my creative expression musically, because my mom, she made me feel very, I don't know if objectified is the right word, but she made me feel very watched instead of felt, and instead of experienced and taken joy with, taken pleasure in my musical, creative, expressive experiences. And I mean, I can remember ever since being a baby child, for some reason, I've always felt self-conscious singing or expressing myself or dancing in front of my mother. And if you really think about why a child feels insecure, it's like, well, something about their self-expression and their expression of rhythm and joy and bodily safety and performance is, unacceptable, or renders them emotionally unsafe if they feel like if they don't feel safe to express themselves like that. I mean, children naturally sing and dance all the time. Are you kidding me? Everywhere you go, you will see children dancing and singing in public in like random places. And that was something that I never, and I'm not saying every child feels confident and comfortable expressing themselves, but what I am saying is when children are safe, they naturally sing and dance and express themselves like this. And when they don't, maybe they're a little more reserved. But I used to sing by myself in my bedroom as a child, and I remember like this one time I was in my room, maybe the ages of like 8 to 12 are honestly such a blur for me in a lot of my memories, but I remember sometime during that time in my childhood, I was in my bedroom probably like playing with toys or something, and I would just like play with myself a lot alone in my room or by myself. And I can remember singing, and I was like singing, and there was a part of me that was like, whoa, like I like had this meta moment of recognizing my voice, like recognizing the power in my voice and recognizing like this technical quality in my voice. and really feeling like embodied in that moment of singing, of expression. I'm like, whoa, that was good. That was powerful. And I reminded myself of some kind of like sultry, famous like country singer or something. I don't even know. But there was just some quality that came out of my voice that I just had this profound experience with. And I was like, whoa, like I was just with myself and feeling my voice. And I have always experienced profound like musical frisson when listening to songs. You know, the impact that specific music has had on my body and on my emotions has been like profound and transcendental, full body. I'm so sensitive to sound as well. If I'm listening to something I hate, it's extremely dysregulating, like very dysregulating for me. Like sound is enormous, and having control over my creative expression and my musical field and being kind of a leader in a way in the field of sound, or being in an environment where the sound is contained in a specific kind of quality that makes me feel safe and soothed and at the same time expressed and held and elevated. It's a very rare thing, but it's one of those conditions that is it's so rare in my life, but it has one of the most profound impacts on the way that I feel. And I have experienced this before, specifically, a couple years ago when I was surrounded more by like kindred musical types of people, where I shared that musical chemistry with, that creative chemistry with. But anyway, as I was saying, when I was younger and a kid, I felt so self-conscious about performing music and expressing myself. And I can remember I took a piano lesson one time, I think before I turned 13, and this guy was teaching me basic press this key and do it in this rhythm and this time signature. I'm not even kidding you. I remember I was doing that, and I made myself perform beneath my skill level, and I made myself look less capable and less adept than I actually was, because the stuff he was teaching me was way too simple for my brain. So what I did was I pretended that I was learning something, and I pretended that it was hard so that I could fit into the structure of what he was teaching. And obviously I had no concept of my own capability. I had no concept of the fact that, hey, this is way too easy for me. I need a challenge. I wasn't familiar with that idea. And so, in a way, that always held me back from growing as a creative artist who could learn a technical skill to grow from somebody else, because I had no way of articulating that. I had no way of, and I didn't have anybody around me who could observe that about me and encourage it in me. If I did, I'm sure things would be different, maybe. But anyway, this was just kind of this part of my story, especially regarding music and creative expression. So I remember I wanted to take keyboard lessons, and there was a teacher at this music school that my brother went to, and he was really encouraging, and he would always used to kind of make pokes, not in a humiliating, taunting way, but like he would always like push, like do little pushes and like encourage me to get into keys. But I always felt so humiliated, like preemptively humiliated, because I was anticipating my mom seeing me. Because you know what it's like to have a narcissistic parent. It's not safe to be visible. Because what do when they actually see you? They belittle you, they demean you, they gaslight you. They reflect back everything except for who and what you are. And so when you express your soul, that makes your soul so fucking vulnerable to being distorted. And so I think because music has always been one of the most fundamental parts of who I am, like, I love being visible. I love performing. I love being seen. I love when I have a friend group and I have these moments where I'm like acting like a gremlin. I'm the center of attention and I'm making everybody laugh and I just feed off that power. This is a part of me. I love being seen. I love expressing myself. I love exposure. I love vulnerability in like a safe, fulfilling, satisfying way. These are really, really fundamental parts of my soul. And maybe they're even more pronounced because of how I had to hide them growing up. Because of being raised by a narcissist, if you are yourself, then, you know, like I said, it renders you so fucking vulnerable. And I internalized a tremendous amount of shame in the ways where I was seen emotionally and physically with my body. Those were two things that, you know, you couldn't ignore. But my mom picked me apart physically and emotionally in these ways. And so, you know, music, like expressing anything really is vulnerable, but like performing really is such a vulnerable thing too, because you're literally just, you're exposing your soul when you perform from your soul. When you make music from your soul, it's raw, you know, there's no filter, it's just, music is spontaneous, it's just rhythm, it's a pulse that you are catching and you're riding and you're translating it in real time through your instrument, through your medium, and there's no filter between your soul and your spirit and what is coming out of you. So of course it's unsafe to express that if you're in a narcissistic household where being visible is scrutinized. So this whole video is coming back to the main point of like, when you finally start to close the gap between yourself in the present moment and the ideal version of yourself that you want to become, and how that process requires you, doesn't only ask you, it requires you to confront the vulnerabilities that kept you behind a wall between you and your dreams once upon a time. And for me, like, I have dreams of performing on stage in front of thousands of people. One day maybe I will. I don't know. But that has been a consistent fantasy of mine for like years and years and years, whether it's talking and speaking or making music. But that has always been a craving of mine. I have such a profound desire to express my soul musically in front of people, because I just have that much soul to give, and I haven't been safe to do that in my past. I didn't get that emotional support from my family on a soul level, as I've explained. And now that I am estranged, and now that I am living in my own home, under my own roof, and beginning to allow these parts of my soul to kind of gently come back online, and I'm just getting this visual of like a turtle head coming out of the shell after a storm or something. It's not a very good literal example because I don't think turtles, I don't know how turtles behave in storms, but you know, it's an analogy. Get with it. But yeah, that's the visual that I get. Like a turtle putting its head back out of its shell after a scary moment where it retracts. Maybe a predator comes or whatever. I mean, yeah, that was my situation. I had like emotional, spiritual predation energy all around me. But yeah, that's kind of what's happening in my life in different areas, and like music is one of those areas for me. But yeah, now that I'm like no longer susceptible directly to being emotionally preyed on by abusive family, I have a different level of spaciousness in my soul that my soul is supposed to fill. And that requires me to grieve the musical upbringing that I didn't get to have. That requires me to grieve all of the lost chances that I had to perform or share my music with people from a place of joy rather than from a place of pressure, performance, expectation. That requires me to grieve the reality that music for me was rarely ever allowed to be something that I could lean on to express my soul and to share my joy. I really have so much like power and love that I can feel and express through music. It's like profound. But yeah, I actually have kind of adapted this like amazing protective mechanism of severe depression in my life because of how cut off I've had to be from my essence in some ways, musically. And I think it's just incredible even to name that and to feel that, because that in and of itself is like a testament to how much closer I am becoming. I am coming to back to my essence, back home to my soul. And the other day, actually at night, I opened GarageBand and I was like recording some guitar riffs and some vocal loops and stuff, and I actually made something that I like fell in love with, and it was a very loose, raw recording, but I just like improvised and I was just making this thing, and I was sitting there for 2 hours on GarageBand, just like endless creative expression, and I had to stop because I was getting tired. And I realized I was like, I have no idea where this creative surge came from, because I haven't felt that level of uninterrupted creative expression in years, where I'm sitting there with like a pen and paper and I'm drawing until my body can't go any further. Like, I'm drawing until my body collapses. Like, a lot of artists will get this, probably, or passionate people, whatever, autistic people, where you stay up all night and you're just creating and you literally don't stop until your body actually gives out on you in some way or another. But it's like that's the level of energy that your body needs to express, you know? And I was having one of those nights last night and I was like, oh my god, this was the first time in years that I've touched this feeling again. So I just wanted to share this story, share some of my vulnerable experiences with you, because I want to encourage you that the space between you having what you desire on a soul level, like your deepest, most profound dreams, like the space between you and those dreams being fulfilled, it's not impossible and it's not dead and it's not this crevasse that you're going to jump into and fall into and die. It might feel daunting and it might feel big, but the space between you and that, I think, in a lot of cases, could just be a matter of you maybe grieving limitations that got between you and the thing, or even just acknowledging the hard reality that, like, yeah, maybe there is something that's actually pulling you away from living your dream. Maybe you are vulnerable to something that, if you did expose yourself to it, you would be, like, for me, again, you know, abuse. I'm not gonna bypass the reality that sometimes when you're in abusive situations, self-protection is the better option than self-revelation, self-expression, because it's safer, it's emotionally safer. The cost it has on your nervous system is lower. And I don't want to shame anyone ever for not feeling able or capable of being who and what they want to be because they're limited by abusive, controlling situations. Like, that's such a real thing, and I know because I've lived it. And I'm not going to be one of those bullshit, stupid, fucking shut the fuck up self-help gurus who victim shame people who genuinely are being controlled and coerced or psychologically manipulated. And I'm not going to victim shame or victim blame or bypass the reality that, yeah, victimhood is a real thing. It is. It fucking is. It is. But you see, I'm not... There's a difference between staying trapped in victimhood after you're no longer under direct threat, like after you're no longer actually being actively victimized. There's a difference between staying in that state and growing, and bit by bit, baby steps, at your own pace, loving yourself, honoring yourself, growing out of it. Like I was describing earlier in this video. Like, yeah, I get caught in depression spirals and it's not sexy. It's so unattractive, I think. Like, I feel so bad about myself when I find myself, like, all of a sudden spiraling, and I'm like, I feel like my whole life is falling down a drain. But you see, that's a thought, that's not a feeling. It's just an insecurity, it's a fear, and then that kind of just spirals in on itself. But when I can catch that, and I can even do one small thing to shift my mindset, to shift my nervous system state, which consequently shifts my mindset because it interrupts that pattern, because it interrupts the body level pattern. And when the body level pattern is shifted, then the mind follows. So it's not about gaslighting your thoughts into being different. It's about shifting your body state, shifting your nervous system state. Not by forcing, not by punishment, but by love, by a gentle hand to guide you into a different room. Just to sit there for 5 minutes and experience a different environment, different stimuli, different exposure, an interruption of your regular routines. And that's the difference between remaining in victimhood after the actual directly experiencing victimization and growing, you know. So yeah, I hope this gives you inspiration. This was a lot of fun to film, and I think after this I'm gonna probably make some music on GarageBand because I'm feeling all soft and inspired, and like, this was so powerful. And I really just want to turn on my musical expression more and more. I want to turn my soul back on because I feel like I've been dead for so long. That part of me has been dormant for so long that it's manifested into this depression that's just gotten deeper and deeper over the years, you know. But now that I'm actually out of survival mode and in a stable environment with a relatively stable day-to-day life, with things popping up here and there, it's like I actually have the opportunity to expand and create the conditions in my life that support more of my soul's expression. And it's daunting sometimes because the closer I get to expressing those parts of myself, the closer I also get to the parts of myself that had to suppress that expression, and the more grief that comes up consequently. So it is a very, very tender process, but I just want to be real about it. So I'm sending you so much love and encouragement, and if you can relate to this, then leave a comment. And like, what are you growing into? Like, what is something in your soul that you are opening up to? What's a long-term like goal or vision that you have in your life? Like, what's something that you're actually finally sitting with and pursuing and letting yourself move into? Or, if you're not able to pursue something, like, what is something that you want to pursue, and what do you feel like is limiting you? So yeah. And one last time, if you want to explore these tender processes and the lived reality of what it feels like on a nervous system level, on a non-linear, non-lingual level, on a somatic level, to just exist as you are right now, however you are, wherever you are, whatever you are. If you want to experience attunement and creative, symbolic, experimental exploration and expression in the midst of that, in a group of people, facilitated by me for 6 weeks with continuity afterwards, access to a private Facebook group, and a discount on a one-on-one session with 3 weeks of continuity support after that session, go to the link in the description. I'll put it there, and follow me on Instagram to see more little blurbs, more little wisdom pieces. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you next time.